I'm writing a paper on the aspects of how interior design and education combine. So first I'm going to just go onto Google. Um, and I prefer to use Google because there's a greater number of sites that I could use to research. And I'm going to type in my main ideas, which is how interior design affects a classroom. And so for the sources I usually look for, I usually prefer to use ones that end in .gov or .edu. Uh, and normally if I don't find one, I usually adjust my research and add scholarly sources. Okay, and I found one that's .gov, so that's one usually I prefer. And I usually go with .gov because in my English composition class, my teacher prefers to use those because they're more credible with better sources, and most of the times they come from either universities or journals that have been published. And this seems like a pretty good source because it lays out the different like topics of what the essay is about or the journal is about, and it also includes its own sources that the author has collected from multiple different people. And normally when I find a source that I really like, I will I will go to EasyBib and do the bibliography for it, the works cited for it, so that I can remember. And I'll usually just copy and paste it onto a Word document so that I remember which source I chose from. And with EasyBib, sometimes it doesn't collect all the information, so I usually have to type it in manually. So for this one, it all EasyBib needs is when it was electronically published, which was the June 3rd, 2015. And after I've completed the EasyBib, I will usually copy and paste the citation from EasyBib onto a Word document. And but although most of the times instead of using MLA, I use APA. I I use APA mainly because I find it easier to organize all my thoughts, and with MLA it's kind of just writing it all down, and with APA I can kind of section it out and what I want to write, which is a lot easier for me. So, uh, if I want a broader source of information, usually I go into the Google Scholars, and then I will type in the kind of two main points that I want to research for my topic, which is interior design and classroom learning abilities. And with Google Scholars, it it definitely gives me more credible sources, but with one reason I don't really like using Google Scholars is because it kind of gives you, I feel like, too much information. A lot of them are very, very lengthy. And then if I'm on Google Scholars, I'll adjust what time period I want to use. Like, and so a lot of the times it shows you things from 1990s. And so for with my English teacher, she usually tells us that to get a better credible source, it's better to get from a 5 year period. So I'll adjust that. So I'll do 2010 to 2015. So I've chosen another source that has from Google Scholars that has a PDF, and it seems to have a lot of information, and it's also sectioned out like the last source that I looked up, which I think is a lot easier for me to kind of look through and kind of summarize with when I'm writing a paper, and when I choose a source I can go back and find exactly which part of the article that I want to reread. But this one doesn't seem to have a full length version, so I'm not going to use that one. And with Google Scholars for this subject, I'm not really finding much that I like, so I'm just going to go back to just regular Google. And I'm going to do a more detailed search. And for this one, I'm going to look at what a source from the New York Times And even though it's not a .edu or .gov, I know that with the New York Times, I feel like it's also a pretty good, credible source since it is a very well-known newspaper. And with this one, doesn't have as much information as I wanted. But one of the things that I like about this article is that it has its own sources from teachers that understand kind of the topic that I'm looking under, which is how does interior design affect classroom learning ability. So it has this teacher's own opinions on how to manipulate a classroom environment into a way that students feel have a greater learning ability. But I will probably still use this source, so I would just copy and paste the link onto EasyBib. And since I usually use APA, I'll go with that. And since EasyBib doesn't have an APA format, an easy way to cite APA, I'm going to use a different link, which is Citation Machine. And since it's a website, I'll use that. And so Citation Machine is very similar to EasyBib. And it also informs you of things that are missing from the citation that it did not find. So I would have to go and manually fix that. And then when I'm done with the APA citation and fixing it, I would just copy and paste it onto a Word document. And I prefer to copy and paste onto a Word document before actually writing about my source so that I can easily come back to which article I was in case I lose my information. And then now I'm going to choose a different source, which is through Edutopia, and it's a .org. So that's another source that I usually feel is credible. And I really like this source. It definitely has a lot more information than the last one through New York Times, and through what I'm reading, it looks like the author actually did a hands-on experiment with teachers and kind of getting real life information instead of just looking through teachers and what they have to say. He actually went into the classrooms and kind of did his own research.